Welcome everybody to Fresno State Small Business University's latest webinar, Finding the Problem and Solution for Your MVP, Minimum Viable Product. My name is Brian Salcedo and I am the project assistant with the Fresno State Small Business University, where we help people start businesses, or if they already have a business, we help them expand their business. I will be your producer for this presentation, along with my host from the Pie Shop, Kent Pelisseri.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, so I think we're gonna start off here. My name is Kent Pelisseri, like Brian mentioned. I am the Director of Product Tours at the Pie Shop, and we are located in downtown Fresno. And let's get the slides started here. If I can take over real quick. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, here we go. So my name is Kent Pelisseri, and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey from A to Z Virtual Workshop Session 1. So we're going to be presenting 8 workshops throughout this year with OSED. And tonight's topic is finding the problem and solution for your MVP, which is minimum viable product. And I first want to start off by thanking our sponsors, Eduardo Gonzalez, Shelby Gonzalez, and also Brian Solcito, who is co-hosting with me. A big thank you to the Office of Community and Economic Development Fresno State staff members. So thank you so much for giving, for your support and giving us a platform to help future entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs. And we really appreciate it. So thank you from the president and director, executive director, Mark Jackson as well. And a little bit about myself. I've been with the Pie Shop almost 2 years, and I come from a background of consulting. I just kind of going through what I do at the Pie Shop. I assist members and non-members with product ideation development, product development, refinement, team and talent sources, business development, and early stage startup and market strategy, and also engineering project management. So I graduated from Clovis West High School. And also from there, I went to Santa Monica College and got my AA in psychology, then went to Long Beach State University. And after graduating Long Beach State University, I started a career in consulting and investment banking with a company called Growth Inc. And while I was working full-time at Growth Inc., I was attending extension programs at UCLA School of Business. And during my time at Growth Inc., I would consult existing businesses and also startup businesses, Fortune 2000 companies, and I would consult them through either developing a pitch deck or a business plan, financials, also market research, market demographic research, private placement memorandums. That firm did a lot of work across the board for how small the boutique consulting investment banking firm that was. Did a lot of different, had a lot of different arms to help businesses either with startup or exit strategy. So did that for a while, and I lived in LA for a little over a decade and then relocated to Fresno. When I came back to Fresno, I noticed that there wasn't very much consulting in terms of people going into businesses, helping the startup business or the existing business either grow the business or exit, or provided an exit strategy for that business. So I decided to take it on myself, upon myself to create a freelance business consulting company that basically worked with medical offices, small businesses, and startups located in the Central Valley. And before I became the director of the Pie Shop, I was the chief financial officer and general manager of a local coffee chain headquartered in Clovis, California. And during those over 2 years, I expanded the business from 2 locations to 7 locations, and also had another business that expanded to another state as well during my tenure when working for them without using outside investors or traditional SBA loans. So I grew that business pretty rapidly for not using any type of outside investors or loans. So I'm very familiar with helping entrepreneurs and startup businesses kind of get to their goal and hit their mark in terms of financial projections and growth strategy. And also, I wanted to introduce Mark Jackson. He is the CEO and president of Blue Dolphin Design and Engineering and founder of the Pie Shop. And he's the chairman of the board of the Pie Shop. And he has over 30 years of engineering experience. And that's him on the left. And on the right, that is Mark Tarpening, who is the co-founder of Tesla. So really, really cool guy. We hope to have him back here since COVID is kind of dying down a little bit. Hopefully we can have him back or even get him on a virtual call, hopefully on one of our webinars this year. So I'll reach out to him and see if he can do that for us. And going into what the Pie Shop is, I kind of talked about it before, but we are a business incubator, business accelerator, nonprofit 501c3. So we have a lot of different tools and different partnerships that we have. We have partnerships with Coleman and Horwit, who provides legal counsel for our Pie Shop members. We also have an accounting firm we work with that can help you with your accounting, set up your new business. Also, we have a fully equipped shop. As you can see, CNC machines, 3D printers, welders. We have a large facility. So if anyone after this presentation wants to make an appointment to take a tour of the Pie Shop, we can do that either virtually or in person. We just have to be careful with COVID regulations, so we take that very seriously. And also, the Pie Shop, I brought up the Blue Dolphin Design and Engineering is because they are our other strategic partner who provides our engineering team, provides do-it-yourself engineering assistance and guidance to potential and existing Pie Shop members. So if you come to me and say, hey, I have an idea, or hey, I have this product, will this be viable? Is this can this work in the market for what I'm looking to get into? We go through that process of ideation, and the engineers then kind of take a look and say, hey, this is something, or hey, this is, you need to work on this design. So we're very interactive with our even non-members or members of the Pie Shop. So I encourage everyone during this presentation. This is an interactive presentation, so I'm hoping that the people who are involved at this presentation are going to ask questions, and you don't have to give away any IP information, any proprietary information regarding your possible idea or product. You can say, hey, I'm in the ag business, or I'm in the service industry, and you can ask me any question you want. And if it is specific, we can always talk offline after the presentation is over, and I'll list my email at the end of the presentation as well. But I highly encourage everyone in this meeting to actually send Brian a comment through either Messenger, or he'll turn on the mic after I go through the slides here, and I'll give a second to kind of wait 5 seconds and say, hey, does anyone have any questions or an example, or any questions for me, or the type of people we've actually helped throughout the Pie Shop and who we've helped through Blue Dolphin. So, and these are some of the other service offerings we provide for startups and entrepreneurs. Co-working office space. We are, like I said, we're located in downtown in the Peerless building, and we provide community mentorship, machine shop, prototyping labs, business development services, which is my specialty, and workshops and webinars like what we're doing right now. And we also provide coffee. We provide administrative support. Also, we have computers with SolidWorks on it as well. So if you are a Pie Shop member, you'd have access to SolidWorks, which is a really expensive suite to have. It's thousands of dollars a year to have one membership for SolidWorks. So we offer that to our members, part of our membership. And also, what does Blue Dolphin do? Because they're being mentioned quite a bit in this presentation. They're an engineering firm, and like I said, Mark is the president CEO, and they work with clients across the board, whether it be ag, it could be any of these things that I'm naming. Ag, it could be a product offering, retail offering. One to mention, some of the people on this call may have heard of the Bump It by Kelly Fitzpatrick. We actually helped her develop that product and design it. and she is doing very well for herself. She's a multimillionaire, and we are allowed to express that, and we're because she gave us permission to. But that's one of the clients that we really are proud of. And she's a female entrepreneur, so we're looking for more female entrepreneurs, more female leaders in the Central Valley. I love talking to female entrepreneurs and startup businesses just because we need more of them. But yeah, we have more. If anyone has any other questions or examples, I'd be happy to go through it throughout the presentation. So kicking off the typical journey of an entrepreneur. So this was supposed to be about finding problems with your MVP. So a lot of things stem from the MVP. So we will be talking about the MVP, but leading up to the MVP, and then after you decide your minimum viable product, there are things afterwards. That's where it really gets challenging. And the most I see from Pie Shop members or non-Pie Shop members, that people that come up to me and ask, hey, Kent, I don't know how to get to my MVP. How do I know it's good? How do I know this is it? How do I know it's not going to change? And we're going to go through that process as well. But just as this, we're going to talk about each subject listed here on these bubbles, and we'll go through. And like I said, if there's any questions after a slide, please, in the comments section, let Brian know. And then we can also let you talk and open up the mic as well. So ideation, this is a big thing because ideation is your idea, right? Tons of people have ideas, and most of those ideas, to be honest, they don't come to fruition because of fear or I'm going to fail, or it's too risky. All those things kind of trump and put a roadblock in front of entrepreneurs and startup businesses. So one of the first things I do with either an entrepreneur or a person who has a service offering or a product offering, I go through the ideation phase thoroughly. So I usually give examples of, hey, where are you at in the project? Who's your target market? Let's go through that process first. And how did you come up with the idea? And a lot of these things, there's a lot of books out there that you can read, like Big Magic is a good one by Elizabeth Gilbert. It kind of goes through what every entrepreneur or startup business goes through is trying to just dampen the fear and the risk and just tell yourself you're going to do it, and because you have so much ambition and you can overcome that fear. So there are some books here I listed. I highly encourage you to read at least one of them. They're all really good self-help books in terms of getting your idea or your business or your product or your service offering off the ground. And also perfectionism is a huge waste of time. So we have, I've come across a lot of startups even through for the last 12 years of entrepreneurs. And the main thing is they don't think they have it yet. So they're just going to keep trying to perfect this thing, whatever the thing is. And if you keep doing that, then you'll know 10 years later, oh, someone else came out with it, and your idea is just gone, or it's just poof, someone else took it. Not by spying on you, it's just ideas come to fruition, and then someone else is going to think of the idea and just run with it, and they're not going to procrastinate. So it's always better to actually just hit the ground running, see as soon as you get the idea, because there's a lot of people in the world, and that idea can be taken out of the ether and just someone else is going to benefit from it. So, and always care about the thing rather than yourself. Am I going to fail? Well, who knows? But as long as you commit the time and you're actually passionate about the thing that you're working on, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or what you think. If it's going to work, it's going to work because of your hard work and ambition to make it work. And figuring that out through ideation is the best way to start, is challenging the idea. So a lot of things that people do, and people use idea evaluation and market research. So I'm sure if I'm talking to anyone here that's on this presentation, a lot of people, the first thing they do is my product already available, or is it out there? Does it exist? And they do a Google search. They also do another cheap thing you can do as well is go on Google patent search. It's pretty accurate, but if you really want to get down to it and you say, hey, I need to find out for sure if this thing even exists worldwide, in most cases, you will need to probably hire someone, a professional, a patent attorney, just to double check that you're not infringing on anyone's patent. But for the most part, for starting out, you want to see if your product's available in the marketplace. Use Google. Most people use Amazon because Amazon's a great platform. They have tons of new products on there on a daily basis. And those two things you would do to see if your thing exists. And searching different marketplaces. So another thing too is to crowdfund, starting a crowdfunding page or Kickstarter page. This gives you an idea for purchase orders, right? So let's say you have a product and you say, hey, I don't even know if this thing's gonna sell. So you create a crowdfunding page or a Kickstarter page to then say, hey, I have 150 people interested in my product. And it's not like you have to tell them exactly how it's made, how it functions. It's a product that says, hey, this product will solve this problem. And if people are into it and it's a product that they need, they will pay for it. Now, how much they will pay for it, that's when you start asking questions and getting feedback from these crowdfunding websites or emails that you send out, is getting feedback from the Kickstarters, from the people who want to see that product, and then you refine the product from there. And that kind of goes in the focus groups as well. You use those people to challenge your idea, refine the idea, and then go back to the design board and say, hey, I thought this was the need, and now it has another need. So doing the crowdfunding and Kickstarter pages are a great way to make contacts and also create your potential customer, right? So they're in the pipeline. They're waiting for you to say, hey, when's it going to be out? When's the deliverable? Okay. So other than that, are there any questions so far? I hope I'm not going too fast, and I'll wait 5 seconds. Brian, you let me know if anyone has any questions so far.
Yeah, we do have our first question of today. It is, how much do your services cost?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you're a student with the Pi Shop, access to all the machines, the 3D printers, our routers, our routing table, our laser table, and that's a $170 or that's a $100 fee for students per month. There's no, it's month to month. So if you come in for 1 month, it's $100. We also have a non-member or a non-student fee, which is the normal Pi Shop member fee, which is $175. So if you are a student, you get a really deep discount, and that gives you access to all of our partners as well. So if you're stuck at a phase for $100, you can most likely get through it. We can help you get through it. And also, we also offer the co-work space, which is separate from the shop space. It's a space to collaborate, to network. That membership is only $50 per month. So that being said, I hope that answers that question. And we also have, like I said before, we offer coffee. You can also put on presentations there. But as COVID is still existing and going on, it is a little bit more challenging. We have to schedule people out separately, so we can only have so many people. But for the most part, it's working out for us. And yeah, I hope that answers that question. Are there any other questions, Brian?
No, not at this time, but good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
And like I said, if you have more questions regarding, what the Pi Shop can do for you, in most cases, I'm going to go into that too. We get a lot of offers regarding, or a lot of inquiries about apps, like phone apps. And I want to go into that a little later, but when we hit that slide. So let's move on here. So the power of networking, this is important because talking about your idea, not too in depth to where someone can actually steal it. If you are talking to people and a trustworthy network of people like your family, your friends, I would even encourage, outside that circle to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. But talking about your idea freely about the concept of your idea is perfectly fine, because you're not, as long as you don't give away exactly what your IP, your intellectual property is. It's a great idea because then you get people throwing ideas back at you, and then you might be building a team and not even know it to launch your product. And you need those people. You need a team of people that believe in your idea, and you need the feedback, and you need strategic partners because you're going to need them. There's not very many people that can do it on their own. And I always say, if a person says, "Oh, I don't need any help with, with my company, I can do it all by myself," I usually find that that company is either a multi-level marketing plan agency or a pyramid scheme. Because if you're really trying to launch a product and make a successful company, it takes resources. So I always say, hey, that's great if you can do it on your own to a point, but at some point you want to grow to where you have to find strategic partners and or hire professional people to keep growing your brand or business. And then also this goes into team building as well. Team building is harder than you think, because you have a lot of people that say, "Hey, I'm really interested. I would love your idea. Tell me more about your idea." So a lot of these people, they'll come by, they see an opportunity, they see dollar signs. So I would strongly suggest staying away from people that just think about money versus the idea and seeing it go to market. You can kind of tell because they're more interested in how much are you going to sell it for? Oh, well, how many do you think you can sell? And they're not really asking the question like, hey, what would be your next offering to market, right? So if they're not asking those questions like, hey, after you make this product, what's going to be your second market offering? What's going to be your third to stay, to increase your revenue stream and keep growing? Those are the type of questions you want to, or what kind of team do you currently have that you're working with? And I have some ideas to help you build out that company and from a marketing standpoint and also from a distribution standpoint. Those are kind of key words that you want to hear people wanting to help you and have the knowledge to help you. So that's very important with startups, because most startups that, unless you have a rich uncle or rich mom and dad, they don't have a lot of money. And if they do, the money they do have, you worked hard for it, and you're looking for the best talent you can get, but more so not so much they're focused on money, they're focused on what you're going to provide to the market and what you're going to launch, and believe in the product. Because those people who just want money and you just want to pay them, you're going to be out of money after you hire the first person. So you need to find strategic partners that believe in the idea and can do more sweat equity than just giving them a paycheck. And this kind of leads into once you build that team, you find those team members, you have to be a project manager. And a lot of the entrepreneurs and startup businesses, this is where it gets a little, they don't know how to project manage or create a team environment. And there's a methodology using Agile philosophy and Scrum methodology. And I want to stop at this point, and I don't know if anyone has heard of these terms, Scrum or Agile. Maybe Brian, someone might want to answer or say yes or no, or have any questions of what it is. I can go into it, but let's see if we have any questions so far.
I'm seeing none, but we can give people some time to maybe type it in the chat box or the Q&A box.
Okay. Well, as I'm explaining what Agile philosophy is and Scrum methodology, it's becoming more of a term, because building a good team, and I can say this regarding Blue Dolphin and the Pie Shop, our team network, our team is very good at communication, and it's a pleasure to go into work because you have support, you have people willing to help you. We're all in the same mindset to make things easier, if not easier, to solve problems. So that's the kind of team you want to be with, that has a positive attitude. They walk in, you say, hey, today's impacted. I have tons of stuff on my plate. Hey, today I'm still working on stuff, but you seem really, really bogged down with work and you have a lot of stuff going on. Those are kind of team members and project management people you want on your team, because they're there to alleviate the problem or make it so today is not as bad as maybe not tomorrow, but they're really thinking of the whole team as a whole. So I'll go into what is Agile versus Scrum and what's the difference. So Agile is a philosophy. Agile is the development of a set of methods and practices where solutions evolve through collaboration between self-organizing self-organizing, and cross-functional teams. So Scrum is the type of agile methodology, and I'll go in and I'll show a slide after this. It's the process framework using the managed product development and other knowledge work. So you'll see in the next slide here what Scrum is, and it's going to kind of lay out what it does and what's the difference between the two. So when you're developing your product or your MVP, you say, okay, here are the requirements, here is the design, development, testing, and deployment. So that's how a typical, if it's a Scrum project, they call it the waterfall outcome at the end. It's a big outcome at the end, right? So you say, let's hope that everything works out, and at the end, hopefully everything comes together. So Agile is a little different. You're constantly, you have the requirements, you have the design, you develop, and then test. And then if the testing isn't what you want, then you go back and you keep doing it. So you're refining the product, cumulative outcomes. Now, in certain industries, you use Scrum or you use Agile. They go they're different in a way, and I can kind of go into it as well more. This is the Agile methodology, just focusing on this. So you have a Scrum Master. So let's say I'm the Scrum Master, and then you have daily meetings and artifact updates, making sure that we're all on the same page. We're solving the problem, or we're coming up with a solution as a team. And that actually, I think, is the best way to solve problems or come up with new ideas of how to solve problems, this methodology. I think it's great because most people don't even think of doing this. It's as easy as going into giving a specific problem, or you're making something. Let's say you're making a new software, and this is the way to go about it, right? So we were supposed to actually have this hosting before COVID happened. The Pie Shop, we're in talks of using Scrum. We're going to have a Scrum program at the Pie Shop and host it, where you build a car within 8 hours. So you have a team of 8, and you actually build a car you can drive. So when COVID happened, this was right before COVID happened, and unfortunately, hopefully it will happen in the future. But we were talking about having these Scrum programs and Scrum. Excuse me. We're supposed to be having these Scrum projects, but hopefully we can have them after the COVID is all passed and said and done. So, and this is Scrum Agile methodology. It is different. As you can see, you have the user, and then you have the product backlog, and then it goes in the sprint backlog, and it kind of goes in this script. The Scrum Master kind of keeps everyone, and then you sprint to the end. So it's different how you go about the projects. So like I said, for a software engineering company, they would use most likely Agile versus Scrum. And if you're a different company providing a different product, it really depends on what the scope of work is, if you're going to use Scrum or Agile, or you're going to use the waterfall, like I said in the other slide. So let's get down to it, finding the problem to your MVP. So we're at that slide already. So you have to look around, pay attention to the inefficiencies. So a lack of business integration. So you have to do a lot of market research. And research, and a lot of people say, well, I Google search something or I patent search something. You need credible databases that have credible information on your product. And some of those websites are called Forrester, LexisNexis, and you can also do that, like I said before, the Google patent searches. But Forrester and LexisNexis are kind of the gold standard for our consulting company. We would use those two on all the time. So, and it's just like SolidWorks, where you have access to their databases and their cloud, and you can look up any research, credible research, and get information back. So that's why market research sometimes costs so much money, is because you have to have access to these professional databases and obtain that credible information for your market research and market demographic. And also solve problems and increase efficiency of existing systems. Going back to joining a team and networking within the same industry and workforce. So the co-work space at the Pie Shop that is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be creating a networking environment where you have like-minded entrepreneurs, And this has already happened within the last month, where we have two members that have two different MVPs and two different products from two different industries, and they're actually working together, and they found a common ground to help each other. That is exactly what I'm talking about. That's the purpose of the Pie Shop, is to create even the co-work space. You join the co-work space, there's going to be people in there. There's going to be people working on stuff, and you talk to them, and you're like, "Hey, what are you working on?" They're like, "Well, I'm in the building sector." "Well, I'm in the water irrigation sector." "Oh, I'm in the ag sector." But you know what? A lot of those things, they work hand in hand, and if you have different eyes and you talk to other people, they have different equipment, different testing equipment. You can borrow each other's ideas or tools. That's the point of the co-work space, is to create that sense of community and coming together, even though you might not have the same type of, you're not working in the same industry, not the same product. You can bounce ideas off of each other. And that's the other thing too, and I'm going to pause after this slide. We do have NDAs, so non-disclosure agreements, for all visitors and members. So a lot of people will say, "Well, I don't want to talk about it." Well, if you're talking to a Pie Shop member, they signed a non-disclosure agreement, and they're welcome not to share their any of their information or their intellectual property. But everyone at the Pie Shop, we take confidentiality very seriously. So yeah, that's one thing. People are like, "Well, I don't want to talk about it because they might steal my idea." Well, if they do, there's going to be consequences, because there is a signed NDA with all of our members and whomever visits the Pie Shop. So Brian, do we have any questions so far?
We do. Our second question of today: what makes a team agile in terms of success?
So I think I'm going to answer this correctly. So let's go back. So what makes the team agile? Can you rephrase that question? So what makes the team agile is because I think I'm answering this, and if I'm not, please, I can rephrase it as well. What makes the team agile is you're going through the process of refining the solution, or you're refining the current problem, or the current whatever product you're working on, or software you're working on, or service offering you're working on. You're constantly you're having to work as a team to make sure that that's fulfilling the need, right? So a lot of the times when you have a product or a service offering, you say, "Hey, I'm going to make it, and we're going to make it right now. We're going to invest in tooling. We're going to invest in equipment and people," but you didn't really challenge the idea and work through building it, right? So refinement of before a product launch or a service offering launch is really important, because it can cost you a lot of money to make revisions and going backwards. So having multiple people and your team members in the one room trying to work through the problem and communicating with each other and challenging the product offering or the service offering or an app offering, that's what makes it so. I mean, you're basically, it's an insurance policy saying, "Hey, we've tested this, we went through it, we found some glitches, but we created the patch, and we're going to redesign it again, go back to the drawing board and product backlog refinement, and then now we're going to launch again." And then before you launch, you're also going to do, like I said, a focus group, to where, because if you launch a product and you're investing a bunch of money in tooling or in software engineers, you want to make sure your product works when you launch it. I hope that answered that question. If not, I'd be happy to answer it again. Okay. So if that answers the question, and Brian, if you can interrupt me too, if anyone has any other questions as well.
Okay.
So now we're on the solution to finding the solution to your MVP. It's going to go back to research, and more research, because you need to collect data, right? So I always say, a lot of the times people say, "Well, I did the research." Well, what research did you do? And that's going to be that's my first question I ask anyone. Well, I talked to my family members and friends, and they said it's a good idea. Okay. Did you ask anyone who wasn't your friend or family? No, but they wouldn't tell me if it was a bad idea. Well, unfortunately, your family members love you, which is great, and your friends love you too. But when it comes to your product or your service offering or your app offering, they're not the best people to ask. Hard truth. So research, because the more data you have, the more ammo you have in combating your competitors, right? So if you can refine your product and you can make it so your competitor is going to have a tough time catching up to you and say, hey, I'm going to be ahead of the curve here. I just found out that I had a good idea for a product and my competitor hasn't come out with it yet. Well, that gives you some time, right? So you're entering the market and you've done your research. So that's going to save you a lot of money, because if you were to not do your research and your competitor comes out with this product in tandem with what you're coming out with at the same exact time, your competitor most likely might have more money to kind of turn out your lights and say, well, we're going to offer this product as a loss and a loss leader until you're not a competitor anymore. So research is incredibly important in finding the solution to your MVP. And the more research you find, and I found this at the Pie Shop with current members and non-members, is that I hear this all the time. Do you think this is an MVP? If you have to say you think, or I think, or what I think, that I want to hear, this is the MVP, challenge it. So if someone comes to me and says, this is what I want to do, this is my minimum viable product, I want to launch this, can you challenge this? And I will challenge it to the point where some people don't talk to me anymore, but I do challenge the idea, and I'm here to help. But some people don't like feedback when they start realizing it's not a viable minimum viable product. So, and asking for help from mentors and industry leaders in your community. So throughout my day, I as a director, I get a lot of still from Pie Shop members, I get a lot of questions saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and also doing my next my MVP to market, or my next offering to market is going to be whatever it is, the next thing. What do you think how's that going to launch and spawn off of my first MVP and going into the next thing for the business and next offering to market? So I have those conversations throughout the day on a daily basis. And also, if you're not familiar with the specific market and industry, you need to be an expert and start really becoming where someone asks you a question that you can fire off as much information, history about whatever your product was and what it could be, without giving up too much information, of course. But become familiar like you're an expert, like you have a doctorate in your whatever it is, your service offering, your product offering. So when someone talks to you, you can do what's called an elevator pitch and not stumble and think of words because you're an expert. And then also forming a company around the solution. Some people say, well, I'm going to form the company and then I'll figure out the solution. Though that doesn't usually work out that well. You want to form the company around the solution, not the other way around. And also creating opportunities and recognizing an opportunity. So I wish I could go into a specific detail because I just had a recent conversation because of confidentiality, but there are opportunities where you'll be just hit a wall, right? And you'll say, hey, I don't know if this is the right time, right? I don't think this is the right time to really launch my product yet. And then all of a sudden, within a week, your product just opens up and there's such a demand for it that you don't even know how to get started quick enough to supply that demand. That's actually happened in the last couple of weeks with one of our members. So happy to see that, but it can happen that fast. The market can change, things can change, supply and demand can change, especially because of COVID. So it's opened up some doors, whereas other people are actually suffering and losing their businesses. there's other people are getting opportunities and opening doors for their company or their business to then enter the market. So timing is something that sometimes you have to be patient. Are there any questions moving forward, Brian, so far?
There is one question. It says, does PieShop help clients find distributors for their materials or products?
Oh, that's a great question. So when we take on a client, the PieShop and Blue Dolphin Engineering, we have resources to raw materials. We have access to distributors, and we can get you in the door, whether it be for mold injection or for mass producing, whatever it is. It could be what's called a widget. We have access to those people in distributing distribution chains, and we do say, hey, if you have a product, and let's say it's a raw material, and we say, okay, let's find out. Let's talk to one of our distributors or one of our partners here and see how much it would cost to buy, your first pallet, whatever it is, depending on how many you want to make of the product. We would then go to you and say, hey, this is the cost, and we would actually say, hey, we have 4 people you can talk to, and then if there's another outlet we can direct you to, we have those connections. Blue Dolphin does, and then PieShop also we have connections as well for people who, since we are a nonprofit, they can sometimes give you a discount as well. So on raw materials, tools, things of that nature.
Perfect.
Okay, and if there's any other questions regarding where we can help you in terms of getting raw materials, estimating the cost, we do that too for clients as well. We go through and say, hey, this is a mold injected part, right? So you're going to have to buy tooling for it. That's going to cost, $10,000 to $20,000, whatever it is. I'm just making up a number. But we go through the process of telling you what it could cost and estimate what the raw material cost is, what the tooling cost is, if it's mold injection. And also, if it's more difficult mold injection part, we'll say, hey, this is going to be more complex. This is going to be a process. This is going to be more of a process to make and when it comes to mold injection. So yeah, that's the kind of strategic advice that really can save you tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because if you make a mold and then your design, you want to change the design, you can't change the mold. You actually have to go back to the drawing board and make a whole nother tooling mold. And that's tens of thousands of dollars. So in terms of giving you that advice, yeah, we do provide that. And a market test, I think we talked about this. Friends and family, they're great. I know I said don't always trust them, but you have to talk to someone. I always put it on there, and then I say, well, just be careful because they love you. They might just tell you it's a great idea. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone, to where your friends and family think it's great that you're doing something new. But I always say talk to your friends and family. Sometimes you have that uncle or dad who's just like, that's a bad idea, and this is why. So don't take what I said to heart, but you just need real-time feedback. You need feedback from people like me, myself. I have no investment in you. I want to see you succeed, but I also don't want to see you fail and spend a lot of money. So, and also going back through Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and also going back to timing as well. And if you have a social media platform, that is right now where a lot of the entrepreneurs and startup businesses are getting their feedback for the MVP. I helped a person today, and they're getting tons of purchase orders, pre-purchase orders, saying, hey, I'm going to buy X amount of your product, and I just need to know what time I'm going to get it. So through the social media, you can kind of gauge how much material you can get or you need to buy. How much profit margin you're going to have, because you're going to have people say, hey, this is your purchase order. I'm going to have you sign this saying that you're going to commit to this. And then you can go through the process of then, instead of going to a bank and getting a loan, you have those purchase orders beforehand, and you ask for half up front, and then you give them, let's say, a lead time of 3 months because you need to get everything in order. So feedback through ads and social media is a great way to also not spend a lot of money, and it lowers the risk of, is this going to be a viable product in the marketplace, and is there a want or a need for this in the marketplace? And then, of course, once you figure that out, then you go accordingly to say, hey, this is how many widgets I need to make. I need to make about 5,000 of these things for a production run. I'd say that's the easiest, fastest way to just get started, is doing pre-purchase orders and getting a gauge of how much people will actually buy right now before you actually really seriously start investing a lot of money. Are there any questions? A lot of people usually have questions about market demographic and market research. And just to kind of tell you, Fresno, I don't know if anyone knows this, for all the fast food chains, and whenever they launch a new product, Fresno is one of the hot spots for finding out if a product will either be successful or fail nationwide or worldwide. So whenever you see a new sandwich at McDonald's or Taco Bell and they're offering a new food product, Fresno is one of, I believe, 10 cities where they get the most, feedback in terms of, hey, this market is the demographic that's the closest to nationwide across the board. They're the most, open, and also these are the people that resemble the rest of America or the world here in Fresno. So they do a lot of market research here. They also try launching new products here, whether it be food. Also, there are other industries like ag, since we are a big ag town. A lot of the John Deere's and Massey Ferguson's, they come here, they test their products out, they test it with farmers. So Fresno is a great market testing ground for these either startup businesses or just like Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 companies. So something to think about. So if you do want to do market testing, Fresno is the place to get your market demographic and feedback. Are there any questions about market testing thus far, Brian?
None from the audience, but I was wondering if Pie Shop helps people do focus groups. Like, can you do those at the Pie Shop, or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One of our current members is actually bringing in people to look at his MVP right now. He's scheduling people because we do rent out cages that the members can rent. And so in these cages, they have their MVP, they have their tools. And so they invite investors, they invite people who are interested in the product, and they kind of do their pitch deck or their presentation at the Pie Shop and say, hey, listen, what do you think of this? Is there any changes? That's actually happening right now. So yes, to answer that question, we do host focus groups and also investors to come in and look at the members or anyone who has a product offering or service offering through the Pie Shop.
Nice.
Yeah, it's actually really fun because when you host those, it's also a win for us because most people they come to the Pie Shop and they think it's just this little room, and then we take them out in the shop and they're like, holy, I did not know you guys did this. So our shop is pretty impressive, our workshop. So highly encourage everyone to come down to the Pie Shop and take a tour. It's pretty impressive. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next here, and testing your MVP for market viability. This is important, right? Prototyping is important. Prototyping a product is the smartest thing you could do, because if you just say, hey, I'm going to make this product and I'm going to launch to market. It costs, $5,000 to make. I don't really care. I gotta launch it now. And you launch that product without prototyping it, and you just kind of slap it together and then launch to market. That's how you lose people's trust, and that's how you really kick yourself out of the market really quickly, especially if your product doesn't perform as you say, or it doesn't hold up the test of time, durability, quality. Prototyping your product before launching the market can save you not just a lot of money, your reputation, and your sanity. So I'm always conscientious of my reputation before profit or money. So for me, if I put my name on it and I'm selling something, my reputation and what I say it does and what I can do and what I've done with the product or my service offering, that is more important to me than money. Some people it's not, it's the other way around. But prototyping prevents you from spending a lot of money and going back to the drawing board multiple times. And like I said, if you're doing mold injection, you want to get that product right because upfront cost for tooling is $10,000 to $20,000 on average, right? So if you have to go back and spend another $10,000 to $20,000 on tooling for a plastic mold injection part, that is very costly. I don't know that many people that wouldn't care if they lost $20,000. So prototyping at the Pie Shop, we have a V60 Modix 3D printer, and we can print big parts and prototype parts that as long as it's designed correctly and the step file works and it looks good to print. We actually do verify with our members before printing so we don't waste resin or anything. But yeah, we go through that process and say, hey, if, for example, if we have a member come in or a potential member, they say, hey, I don't know if this step file, I don't know if it's going to work. Could you check it out for us? Of course, we'd be happy to do that for you. But just doing that process of finding out if your prototype or what you have is going to actually work and function properly is very important before you launch the market. And also going back to testing with focus groups again, correct the targeted audience. So let's say you have a product that is geared for age group between 14 and 21. And then you find out your product is not for the 14-21. Your product's more for 14 to 18. So that happens, and then that will honestly sometimes change the design of your actual product or service offering, because that age group could be limited to, or even let's say it's like 10 to 14. Your design could change just based off of age group. It could also change based off of also, let's say someone is hearing impaired or they can't see, and your device that you're trying to make is very expensive, and it does, you could be pricing yourself out of the market because the person who's using your device could say, hey, listen, I can't spend $5,000 on this device. I can only spend $5,000, but it costs you $2,000 to make. That kind of going through that testing with the focus groups can tell you if the cost of making the product is your audience or your target market going to pay close to that, right? Because you can figure out really quickly by scaling on a financial model if you're going to lose money on the deal or if you're going to break even or you're going to make anywhere from a 5% to a 30% margin. So knowing your target audience can also really help you with testing your MVP and also launching the market and your market viability, because viability really is who's going to buy your product, who's going to be the end customer. And then that goes back to refining and rebuilding the product again. So focus groups are a great way, as long as they're not family and friends, to get raw feedback and also help you refine and rebuild. And then once you find it and you say for the most part, this is a viable product, people are willing to spend $5,000, $2,000 for it, and it costs you $500, then that's a viable product at that point. And then you can move forward to the next stage. Are there any questions after this slide?
No new questions.
Do you have any questions, Brian?
Not at this time.
Oh, all right, feel free. Intellectual property. So intellectual property is really interesting because a lot of people come into the Pie Shop and they say, hey, I don't want to talk about my product to anyone. I don't want to do focus groups because it's going to give away my intellectual property. Or, hey, should I get a patent for this? because I think that it's patentable and I want to make sure my intellectual property is protected. And I'm going to give you the truth about patents and the good, the bad, and the ugly. But patents are great. Patents can protect your product or your design, and it does cost money to do that. If you want to get a provisional patent, that's good for a year. If you want to go in for a full patent, that can range around $1,000. Sometimes if you have a patent lawyer, it can go up to much higher than that. So patents are great to protect your IP. But here's the thing. If someone steals, if you're trying to launch the market and you're going through the patent pending process and someone does steal your idea or copies it, you have to have the capital to fight it. And that means hiring a lawyer. So if you have the capital to do that and fight them, on a civil basis and sue them, you have to be willing to pay the attorney fees, and those can get up in cost very quickly. And then the other flip side is, well, if you launch the market, you don't have a patent, someone else can copy it, and then you're not protected, right? So I get this asked a lot of times: should I get a patent or should I not, and just launch the market? It depends on the product that you're launching, right? If it's a competitive market and you're making it overseas in China or in Mexico, it's going to be really difficult to enforce that patent out of the country, right? You can do it. Definitely you can do it. On the flip side, do you want to be first to market with the product, really work hard on marketing, and then saying, hey, just like the Bump It, right? As a great example, you want to launch the market and be the first to market, and then other copiers, yeah, they'll steal they're going to steal some of your market share. That's fine. But for the most part, when they see your product, they're going to say, hey, that's the Bump It. I don't know what that other product is, but the Bump It is a quality product. It does what it says. And for the most part, sometimes copying intellectual property, especially when it's coming from other countries, it's usually not, I can't say all the time, but it's usually not the best quality. And the copy is just a way to get it out the door and and cut into that market as quickly as possible. A lot of that happens with a lot of products on Amazon. You see like copycats, and then you get the product and you're like, hey, this was a knockoff. And sometimes it's really good. You're just like, wow, that's impressive. This computer costs a fraction of the price. But then you come to find out the components inside are not as good, because they need to cut costs as quickly as possible. They don't care about quality. They're trying to piggyback on your design or your intellectual property as quickly as possible, because you have hand in the market. So they want a piece of that. So I always say it depends on the product, if you should spend the money to get a patent. But just remember, to fight the patent, whether it be overseas or domestically, you're going to have to pay a lawyer to do that. So that's just something to think about. Yeah, other than that, any questions about the intellectual property slide, or questions about patents? And another thing too, patent searches, going back to Google patent search, you could probably do that right now as I'm talking during this slide, and see it's pretty neat. And for the most part, it does, for a basic search, it does a good job. So any questions, Brian? Excuse me.
No new questions at this time.
Okay, so seed stage. This is where you really have to you're starting to look for money, right? Your first real investment, family and friends, fundraising events, Kickstarter, GoFundMe pages. If you're a nonprofit, you can, like we are at the Pie Shop, you can apply for grants. You can apply for local grants, state grants, and federal grants. I just applied for one recently. The federal grants are time consuming, but you know what? If you're a nonprofit, it's part of being a nonprofit. So I'm sure people have maybe have a question about a nonprofit versus a for-profit business, they are different. So if anyone has any questions about a nonprofit, how it runs, and what you have to do. So it's basically grants and donations for your revenue streams. And then, there are certain things you can and can't do as a nonprofit versus a for-profit. But yeah, this is actually, the Pie Shop's the first nonprofit I've ever worked for. So I'm happy to be a part of it, because it is different from working for a for-profit. And it kind of turned me on my head at first, and then I got into it, and I was like, okay, this is something that's at least I have my feet wet in running a nonprofit. So if anyone has any questions about that, either now or later, I'd be happy to go through with whether you should be an LLC. I can also direct you in kind of, I'm not a CPA, just so we're clear, but there are differences in terms of filing for taxes and incorporation. There's different, there's different there's different things for different industries when you incorporate or become an LLC, or you're a nonprofit when you do file. So that's some of the things too. That's why we have a relationship with a CPA firm. So if you are a member, you say, hey, I need to ask some questions regarding how I'm going to become a corporation, or should I become a nonprofit? Those are really, really good to figure that out in early stage versus when you're starting to really get income in. Okay, so after your first round fund, you got to hire some people. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can get away with it running lean and just kind of subcontract some work out. But for the most part, you're probably going to have some first hires. There's two types of people. There are the people I talked about before. They want excessive pay. They want stocks. They want shares, right? They short progress gain and entitlement. These types of employees for your startup business, you do not want them. They will drain you of your funds very quickly. You need someone who wants to provide sweat equity, meaning they'll work, and at the end they'll get some kind of share or equity shares of your business and be a part of the business. And they have long-term projections, not short-term projections, on deliverables and where the company can be, whether it be financially or where the company's plans to be in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of growth strategy. And they need to be passionate. I think that's the most important factor, is passionate about the vision. If the person is talking about what they're going to get and they don't care about what you're providing to the market, they're not the right person. I'm just going to say it. They're just not the right person. Also, renting workspace. We actually, at the Pie Shop, we had a dedicated space, but because of COVID, we actually had to give the space away. But we would rent a dedicated space per month, and we had that service. But unfortunately, we gave it up and gave it to another entrepreneur that was starting their own hair salon. So, but we still have the co-work space, and also hiring staff. Also, company structure. Those are a little different for nonprofits as well versus for-profit. And then creating the company culture. Are there any questions regarding this slide? Because usually people have questions.
I see no new questions, but I'm giving people time to see if they want to write one in the chat box.
All right. Well, I think we're doing pretty good on time. We're at the 7:38 time right now is 7:38. So I'm going to move on. If we do have questions after the next one, going into Series A fundraising. So I used to work for a boutique investment banking firm, consulting firm, FINRA licensed company called GrowThink, grow like a tree, think like a brain. They're still in business. They're located in West LA. And a lot of of my job as a business development and business consultant associate was to provide exactly what I'm doing now. I go through and say, hey, let's challenge this idea. How much capital are you looking to raise? And a lot of people think that you walk into an investment banking firm and you have an idea and a short business plan, they're going to give you the money. It's a rigorous process, whether it be a venture capital firm and you're talking to, whether it be an investment banking firm like what I work for. There are levels of you could call it, there are levels of security reasons why we have to vet you so hard, is because it costs money to raise capital. So we just don't give you the money. So most firms like venture capital, investment banking firms, they charge you a fee or they take equity of your company, or they do both. For our company, it would really depend on the type of service offering or product offering that we would provide in terms of investment banking or capital raises. So sometimes we take a little, a payment up front for the capital raise because it costs money to do that, and then we take a portion of equity, the company's equity, on the other end, on the back end. So Series A financing it can kind of be frustrating, and you can also run into the most common is angel investor. So an angel investor is a private investor. An angel investor can come in and say, "Hey, how much money do you need?" "Oh, I need $150,000 for first Series A." "Okay, well, I'll give you the 150, and I want my investment rate of return to be, let's say it's 8%, and they also want 5% equity in the company." Right? So their investment rate of return and their return on investment, it really, there's no set, you can always negotiate this. There's no set percentage. My best advice is do not give away. I'd stick to giving a better return on investment in terms of money versus giving up shares. Once you give up shares, that kind of leads into, okay, so now I have less control of my company, right? Versus you're paying someone out and you're making money, but you're paying them and that's the return on investment. That's their investment rate of return. And it's really taken care of, and their investment, they're making money on it. But it comes down to, in most cases, Series A financing comes with an anti-dilution provision. Startups usually issue preferred shares that do not provide their owners with voting rights. So that means if someone comes in and says, "Hey, I will give you your full amount, and I want voting rights as well." And that means that they can come in, and if they disagree with the growth strategy or the public or the offering, your next offering, they can come in and squash the deal because they don't like it. So I'd recommend not signing, or if you do sign something with someone, always make sure there's an anti-dilution provision. Just to protect your company and at this stage, because a lot of people, they come in, they say, "Hey, this is a great idea. I want to have control, voting rights. I want to have more equity." And as soon as you give up that equity, it's really hard to get it back. So I highly recommend. And also going into, I'll talk about partnerships toward the end as well. And then going back to the pitch deck, if you don't know what a pitch deck is or a lean business plan, that's what we did at my old firm at Growth Inc. We would, customize pitch decks, business plans, private placement memorandums. We did all those services for our clients, as well as possible investment capital raise, a capital raise if your business plan and we vetted your business and go on from there. But yeah, so the business plan, most of you know what a business plan is. It shows your executive summary, kind of gives you the overview of your company and your service or product offering, and then it goes into the financials, financial projections, and then it kind of gives the investor a clear vision of where the company is going to go and what they're going to use the money for. As simple as that. Okay, here we go. And once again, what are you willing to give up from an investment rate of return or equity position? You have to really think about that. And like I said, some people throw out big percentages because the talent seems really good on paper, and then the talent doesn't really turn out to be that great. So once again, you need to talk to experienced mentors, people who have been through this, and hopefully they haven't been taking for too much equity. But you need to talk to people before you start making those big deals to investors. Any questions regarding the Series A?
No, there's no questions in the chat box.
All right, all right. Well, we're at almost at the 15-minute mark, so we're coming to an end pretty soon. Series B scale, that's when you're really scaling. You're starting to really go statewide, national, and then international markets. That's where you're really going to go into your Series B. That's what you're raising capital for, to expand the business, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. But if you have any other questions on Series B and scaling, more than happy to answer any questions for that too. And coming to the end, exit strategy. A lot of people don't think about exit strategy, but it's very important. There's different ways of exiting a company, whether it be a buyout, going public, joining the market, becoming a publicly traded company. Some are against that because now you're at the stockholders' mercy of, you care. Some people think this, you care more about the stock than you do the company, or the CEO does, or the CFO. And then, you know, a lot of people say, I will never go public with my company because of that kind of stigma of, hey, if we go public, we're going to have shareholders, the publicly shared, public shareholders, and some CEOs and business owners don't like that. So you could be acquired by your competitor or a bigger company. That's because you're a competitive nuisance. So your product is coming up on their product and you're outselling them, and they're a bigger company than you. They acquire your company and buy you out. This happens all the time. I can name, just off the top of my head, I got a washer and dryer. The guy told me Whirlpool acquired Maytag, and they're probably going to, so I had no clue that was a thing, but they did. Just, it happens all the time, and people, it's constantly bigger companies or companies that have more money, they buy out their competitor because they strategically look at, from a financial standpoint, it's cheaper to buy them out than to compete with them. So that could happen, and you could have a big payout. So a lot of people hope for that exit strategy. And also, exit strategy would be continuing to grow the strategic partners and finding a new audience while maintaining the old audience. So this happens with a lot of, electronics. This happens with almost every new generation, right? A lot of things have tech in it, right? So let's say you have a toothbrush, right? And you want to make a new toothbrush for the new market because they want a Sonicare type toothbrush, but it also has Arduino hooked up to it that tells your dentist, this is just me coming up with an idea, tells your dentist you're brushing too hard and it's causing gum irritation, right? So how are you going to get that live data and feedback, right? You're going to have to design a new toothbrush that communicates with an app or with something that has a control mechanism. So that regular old toothbrush just turned into a communication device that tells your dentist and you how hard you're brushing, what part of your mouth that you're brushing too hard or too long for, and it sends that feedback to your app or to the server or to the end user. That's what it happens with even a toothbrush. They keep coming out with new designs, new slimmer things, stuff that you can do to make healthier gums. So that's just one thing that a lot of the market is going to be, you're going to have a control. You're going to have a system that is going to be connected to something, telling you if it's broken, or telling you you're brushing too hard, or it's telling you that it's already happening, but it's going to be in more products as we move forward with either appliances, with anything really. You're going to have some kind of device that communicates to an app or some type of control mechanism to where it's telling in real time what is going on with the product and how the product's being used and how the product is either functioning or wearing out or performing. So, and that concludes our first Entrepreneur's Journey from A to Z Virtual Workshop Session 1. And if you want to sign up for Session 2, you can always reach out to me. Our Session 2 is going to be on Thursday, May 27th. So it's going to be 2 weeks from today at the same time. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. My email is right here, Kent.Pellisseri@thepieshop.org. And feel free to check out our website as well. You can kind of see what kind of machineries we have, and also the space that we actually that we host our events. And if you have any questions, you can always stop by or email me after the presentation. That being said, here, are there any other final questions? And that's the flyer for our next event as well. I would be happy to talk with anyone either off the presentation or during the presentation.